Hey everyone. I've been getting this question a lot recently about what professions should I go in Classic Wrath and what professions are really good and what do they all do and what's the whole benefit of them. So, this is going to be my complete guide for the professions of Wrath of the Lich King. This is intended for a 335 client and it's also intended for Classic Wrath with the focus being PvE. So, without further ado, let's get into it. First thing being alchemy. Now, alchemy is a little different, a little underpowered here in Wrath. All it really provides for us are some niche trinkets. You get an extended duration on your flasks, and all of your flasks have a specific extra bonus that comes with them. This being a either 37 plus spell power bonus, an extra 64 attack power bonus, 13 more MP5, or just 320 extra health. Blacksmith in Wrath gets you 2 more sockets. These go on your bracers and your gloves. So if you were a strength class, for example, this would either give you 32 extra strength in phase 1 and 2 because you get 2 more sockets, or this would be 40 strength in phase 3 or 4 where we get the epic gems. Enchanting, all you get are ring enchants. These ring enchants are actually pretty good. You get 40 attack power, 30 stamina, or 23 spell power per ring. Engineering, just like with every expansion, it's a lot. There's honestly should probably be its own video for engineering. With engineering, we get things like Serenite bombs, we get sapper charges, we still got our battle chickens just like we did all the way back in vanilla. We have our cloak enchants, glove enchants, and nitro boosts. Now the big things here are our nitro boosts and our glove enchants. These are going to be the hyperspeed accelerators, which is a haste activation that we get to use every minute, and our nitro boost, which makes you run at super fast speeds for 5 seconds, and it has a 3-minute cooldown. Really useful. Really good profession in Wrath. Next is our inscription. This gives us our shoulder enchants. So this basically only works out to being an additional 37 spell power, or 64 attack power, or 32 dodge over what you would already normally get from the epic Sons of Hodir shoulder enchants. This would never, ever be recommended for any tanks, keep in mind. Jewel crafting. Jewel crafting in Wrath is actually really good. Not only do you get these extra juicy JC gems, which have a unique of 3, and all they do is just replace normal gem slots. What they work out to be is actually 42 extra strength, or 48 spell power, or 63 stamina. Just kind of depends on whatever stat you're going for. They can be literally any stat in the game. They could even be haste, just like we see here, or armor pin. Jewel crafting is fantastic. Not only do you get all the added flexibility of picking and choosing which stat you want to increase, but you can do this for your off specs as well. It's really great. On top of that, jewel crafting also lets us craft a couple trinkets, one of which being this figurine, the Monarch Crab. This is going to be your best in slot tanking trinket for all of phase 1, and if you went all of phase 2 without replacing it, you shouldn't even be that upset about it because it's that good. It would be fine. You can go all the way into phase 3 with this trinket, that's how good it is. Not to mention, jewel crafting is actually doubly better in phase 1 and 2 because we don't have epic gems out yet. These professions are balanced under the 335 client, but if you consider the fact that we will start phase 1 and 2 with only the blue gems, these actually work out to be even more strength and more spell power and more every stat in the game. Thus, jewel crafting being not only your best profession choice for phase 1 and 2, but just a really good profession choice for the entire expansion. Leatherworking. Now, with leatherworking, all you get is just a really nice enchant that goes on your bracers. This basically just equates to an extra 40 spell power, an extra 82 attack power, or 62 stamina. And of course, there are some random little resistant chants that you can use as well, but you don't really need them in Wrath. Tailoring. What's really fun about tailoring in Wrath is you actually get these cloak enchants. And the two best ones are going to be your Sword Guard, which is the attack power proc, and your Light Leave, which is the spell power proc for 15 seconds. Additionally, when you're crafting your special cloths in Wrath of the Lich King, you get this fun little buff that only lasts for about 30 minutes, if I recall. And you can take this buff with you into the raids if you want to take that just a little bit of extra power with you if you're pushing for a big parse. Now, Herbalism and Wrath just gives you a little self heal over time. It doesn't do a whole lot. It's really pretty crappy. There's nothing to see here. It's actually really good on Twinks if you're into that. That's the only way you would ever really realistically want Herbalism for any reason. Mining, going to be similar to some of the other professions. It just gives you 60 stamina, which is actually a great amount of stamina. And it's just a hidden buff that's shown in your spellbook. And skinning, going to be similar to mining, just gives you a hidden buff that you don't see, and it's a 40 crit at level 80. Now, let's go into all the classes and specs and tell you what I would recommend for each one. Starting off first with our Death Knights. Blood Death Knight, our tanking Death Knight. I'm going to recommend that you go jewel crafting and engineering. I really have to always recommend jewel crafting on every tank. And secondly, I love engineering. Engineering for nitro boosts on slow moving tanks or immobile tanks is great. So you get that nitro boost, you get armor enchant to your gloves, which is pretty decent, and overall it's just a nice quality of life. Additionally, you get to use that engineering on any of your off specs, so it's actually going to get put to really good use here for you. Honorable mention, of course, has to be to leatherworking, as it comes up just number 2 on the most amount of stamina we could get from any other profession. For our Frosty K's, I'm going to also recommend JCNG. Honorable mention is going to have to go to our Blacksmith here, as a lot of people really like to run Blacksmith on Frosty K, especially in ICC, as the extra sockets allow you to gem for more armor pin at that point. However, it's so late in the game that at that point I would probably just ride out my engineering that I've been running for all the other phases. Really great enchant that you get from engineering. It's going to be great for almost every single DPS in the game, as you'll see. Unholy, also going to recommend your JCNG. The haste onto gloves is going to work really well with your gargoyle, and that'll just play really nicely for its snapshot. Additionally, I got to give an honorable mention to tailoring. The sword guard enchant to your cloak you can use in conjunction with your gargoyle, and just give it a little extra boost with that snapshot as well. Really fun little playstyle with that. Although I got to stick with engineering. You would only run tailoring as if you're dropping jewel crafting. So it would be tailoring NG, but I think jewel crafting just works out to be a lot better overall. Next up is Druid. We got our feral DPS. I'm going to be recommending jewel crafting and engineering. You can see a bit of a trend here. I promise it's not all going to be like this. What's nice about this is really engineering is the mandatory one for feral DPS. The difference between JC and tailoring is tailoring that proc on your cloak is going to be really nice for your burst, which feral druids have so much burst. The danger of it is one, if you don't play with it right, um, you're not going to get the most amount of DPS from it. And two, if you don't play with it right, you may actually do so much damage that you just rip threat and suicide. So what's really nice about jewel crafting is you actually get to use the agility gems when you want them, and you can swap to armor pin gems when you want them, and just really focus on hitting your hard caps really well and worrying less about what gear you're getting. So gotta recommend jewel crafting. Just gonna be the way safer, way more consistent option for you. Now for feral bears, your tanks, gonna recommend JC leatherworking. And the reason we go leatherworking here and not something like an engineering is just because Druid is all worried about effective HP. They really don't need anything else in their kit. And they're pretty mobile too. Thanks to going cat form and having dash, and they have a charge. They really don't need the nitro boost from engineering, so I gotta recommend JC leatherworking. Honorable mention, of course, going to go to enchanting. Going to be only 2 stamina short from leatherworking if we're talking about min maxing. Blacksmithing won't be as good until phase 3 and 4. Remember, because we have to wait until we get the epic gems in order for blacksmithing to actually catch up in its power. And mining is going to be equivalent to enchanting. Now, Balance Druid, the only real good choice here for min-maxing on balance is going to be JCNG. What's really nice about NG with balance is that you actually get to use your glove enchant for every other lunar eclipse. Works out perfectly for you. This is definitely going to be the best option for you to go. For Resto Druid, I'm going to be recommending jewel crafting and enchanting. Really, all we're looking for is just flat spell power. We don't need any procs whatsoever. We just want pure spell power, and this is going to give you the most amount for you. I will give honorable mention to tailoring, though. I do think the tailoring cloak enchants can be pretty fun for you. And another extra special honorable mention to alchemy, as the alchemy trinkets that you get are pretty decent and could be pretty much bis for you in phase one. The haste is going to help you hit that haste soft cap that you want as Resto Druid. So definitely want to consider maybe going alchemy as your Resto Druid, although enchanting is going to be a pretty solid bet overall. And for your hunters, similar to your balanced druid, there's only two good choices here that just outshine all the rest, and it's really just going JC and G. These two are just going to be way too strong for your survival and marksman hunter. So if you're thinking about going either one of those specs, or if you're maining hunter, just stick with JC and G. As for mage, and this goes for both arcane and fire mage, this is both true. My recommendation is going to be to go tailoring engineering. Now, the tailoring spell power cloak enchant works really nicely with all of your cooldowns that you pop, as you're very CD dependent and very front loaded with your kit. I do give honorable mention here to JC, as it's just really nice to have that flat spell power. It's a little bit less to worry about, and it's just going to always be strong in Wrath of Lich King. But I got to recommend tailoring NG for this for mage. Next, of course, our Paladin. We're going to start off with protection here. Going to be recommending the same as Blood DK. We're going to go JCNG here. The engineering is, of course, going to be really good. Going to give you really good mob control. Really good moments where maybe you need to kite something as a protection paladin, or if you need to go pick up a mob that someone pulled, or if you're just trying to speed run. Highly recommend paladins take NG for speed running. But I will give honorable mention, of course, to leatherworking. It's going to be a really juicy amount of spell power. So, or not spell power, of stamina. So, if you want to run that, totally fine. Now, next up is Ret. I'm going to have to also say JCNG. Going to be a really good choice for you for Ret. However, tailoring actually works out really well for you as well, in case you wanted to go tailoring NG. Tailoring works out as a pretty decent DPS for Ret. Holy, I'm actually recommending JC Blacksmithing. The reason we go Blacksmith is, even though it is kind of weaker in phase one and two, all Holy Paladins really care about ultimately is intellect. And this is the only way that you can get even more intellect on your gear. So getting those extra sockets in your wrist and your belt, or and your gloves actually, uh, is going to give you more intellect. And so that's kind of the best way to go. I do give honorable mention though to engineering, as the nitro boost is really nice on Holy Paladin. The reason it's nice is because Holy is so extremely immobile. They could use the nitro boost as a get out of jail free card if they need to get somewhere really quickly to save the raid. They don't really have much at their disposal for mobility, so this would be really helpful for them. Although I'm gonna have to stick with blacksmithing as my generic recommendation. Now, Disc Priest is going to be similar to our Resto Druids. We really just want some spell power, so I'm going to be recommending JC Enchanting. And of course, honorable mention to tailoring, as the Cloak Enchant works kind of fun with Disc, but not that important. I would just kind of stick with Enchanting unless you already have tailoring. Holy, I'm also going to be recommending JC NG. The NG Glove Enchant is actually pretty nice on Holy if you want to use that to maybe use during heavy incoming damage moments. Also, the Alchemy is very good, very good on Holy, especially in phase one and two. That haste trinket in the beginning is not only going to help with your mana, but it's going to help you hit that haste cap that you need as Holy. So that's going to be really hard for you to hit, considering the gear that's available to you. Alchemy could be really good in phase one and two. Although I do think engineering will win out and just be nice quality life to have as Holy. And for Shadow, I'm going to be recommending Jewel Crafting NG as well, just like with most of these classes. Although I do think tailoring is very, very good and should be considered, as tailoring NG will be really strong with Shadow, especially considering that you want to be snapshotting your Shadow Word Pain with as much spell power as you possibly can. Tailoring could be better than JC, but in most situations, I would just recommend JC NG. I think that's going to give you some really good options, really good damage, and good flexibility. Now, for Assassination Rogue, the two best are going to be JC NG. These two are just very, very good for Assassination Rogue, and the same is true for combat. Not much else to say here. You could go tailoring, of course, with either one of these, but just the choices with the gems that you get from going JC is just going to be way too good. And both the boots enchant and the glove enchant is going to be really strong on Rogue. For Elemental, similar to all the other casters, we're going to be recommending JC NG. Honorable mention, though, to tailoring, as the Cloak Enchant could actually equate to a DPS increase for you. Although I've seen most elemental shamans going JCNG, so it's gonna have to be my recommendation. Now for enhance, no doubt, got to go JCNG. There's not even another profession in the game that comes close to the amount of DPS increase you get from this. The hasten chant just works really, really well with shaman, and the JC is going to be great. Absolutely non-negotiable JC here for enhance, as there's going to be a lot of times where you need to gem straight hit, or there's going to be moments where you need to gem something else, and this just gives you so much flexibility with your gearing. For Resto Shaman, I recommend JCNG. Oh my gosh. Also recommending JCNG. Going to be really good on Resto Shaman. I will say honorable mention, though, to Blacksmith, as Resto Shamans really want to stack a ton of haste on their gear. And getting those extra sockets is just going to be two more options for you to gem more haste. Same is true with Alchemy, as that haste trinket in phase one, it's going to be really nice for you, but it will quickly be replaced in phase two or even just late into phase one. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Now for Warlock, Affliction Warlock, whoop, almost got ahead of myself. Recommending NG tailoring. Similar to mages, we do want to go NG tailoring. What's really nice about this is similar to how I talked about with the Shadow Priest. We really want tailoring, as it's going to be helping us get a really big snapshot off on our corruption. Getting that off on top of maybe Tricks of the Trade and all of our trinket procs and everything that we got, we can get a really fat corruption snapshot, which is going to really help our DPS. And of course, honorable mention to JC, as the flat spell power is going to be really solid overall, but the tailoring will win out as an overall DPS increase if you can play with it. Now, Demonology. Um, this one's a little bit non-negotiable. The best thing for you to go is JC tailoring, as this is going to give you the absolute most spell power that you could possibly get in the snapshot that is going to snapshot for your raid for a DPS increase. However, I will say that engineering will likely result in a higher personal DPS increase. That isn't necessarily something that anyone should ever be recommending for you to go, as Demonology is our a savior of Wrath, and we need to really, really cherish our Demonology Warlocks. We're funneling you all the gear in the world, so the least you can do is just go the professions that we want you to go. JC tailoring is going to be the biggest DPS increase for your entire raid. Coming up, lastly, we have our Warrior. We're going to do Protection first. Lots of options here. This one's kind of fun. Protection is pretty mobile. You have, your Intervene and your Charge. So for that reason, I don't think you need Engineering, although it would still be good. I'm going to have to go with JC Leatherworking as my recommendation, as this is going to give you the single most amount of stamina if we're talking about min-maxing. Although, of course, Enchanting is only going to be 2 less stamina overall than your Leatherworking. Same is true with Mining. And Blacksmith, of course, is also true, but only in phase 3 and 4. So these are my recommendations for Protection Paladin. And then your Arms or Fury Warrior, same is going to be true here. We're going to be going JC NG. Now, I really only recommend NG on Warrior because of Battle Chicken. And there's just going to be a Battle Chicken meta as long as we continue to see that the Battle Chickens can continue to stack the same way that they do in Classic Wrath. If they can't quite stack, your warrior would actually probably be one of your first melee DPS to drop engineering and go for something more like tailoring. Tailoring is going to do probably more DPS than them than engineering for a warrior in phase 1 and 2, and likely in phase 3 and 4, blacksmith will be a really good choice as you can gem more for armor pin with those epic gems as well in your bracers and in your gloves. So a little bit of flexibility with the warrior. I'm just gonna have to go with JC NG for now, and keep in mind the caveat that we'll have to monitor this situation as we go along. Although you won't really be, you're not going to be in the wrong going JC NG, but there could be a DPS increase to come depending on the scripting and bug fixes or just results that we get with Classic Wrath. And that is it, guys. That is every single spec and class in the game. Thanks for tuning in. I don't want this video to go on for too long, but I do want this to be my comprehensive list, comprehensive guide that everyone can refer to for the end of time on anything Wrath for professions. This is my recommendation for you guys. Y'all take it easy. Keep commenting in all my videos. I read every comment, even when you call me an idiot, or even when you tell me that you love what I'm doing and you want to see more of it. Thank you guys so much. I love y'all so much. Have a great day. Peace.